Welcome to Operations and Supply Chain University. I'm Jerry Wright. This is lesson number 7, coincidentally 7S, Workplace Organization. This is part of your Ops University Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt certification course. So 7S, it's about workplace organization. 7S is adapted from the 5S that was started at Toyota, or at least made popular there. The two additional S words that were added were safety and security. The reason they weren't at Toyota initially is safety is just a given in the Toyota culture. Everything must be safe. There's great respect for workers, respect for safety. So they thought putting safety would be superfluous or it's not necessary. However, in our Western civilization, we need to think a little bit more about making sure safety and security are paramount because there are some less than spectacular leaders, or I should say managers, who are pushing for production at the cost of safety or security. We don't want that, so we have to emphasize it. So 7S is a system used to improve and standardize the workplace for a safe and effective operation where the right thing happens on time, every time, no matter who does it. 7S clarifies and simplifies the workplace, reducing waste and improving safety, quality, delivery, and reducing cost. So here's a symbol that helps you understand 7S. So again, safety is kind of organize the workplace to make it safer. Then security, secure the workplace to protect employees and company information. Then we get into the 5S's from the original. Sort, remove things that are not needed. Straighten, everything has a place and everything's in its place in a logical location. Then we sweep or shine to get everything clean and organized. Standardize, and then finally we sustain, which is the hardest, sustaining. So let's look at each one in a little more detail. So safety and security, that's where we'll start. An organized workplace is often a safer workplace. So the first S is for safety. We always do safety first. That's our mantra. That needs to be our mandate. A secure workplace means that employees are safe from unwanted facility entry and that personal, company, and client or patient information is secure. So the second S is for security. Think of your front, office. Maybe you have a security person manning the desk, or there's gates, there's passcodes, there's secure information. Security is important. I can tell you if you go to General Atomics, which is near where I live in Poway, they make the unmanned aerial vehicles, which can shoot missiles, air to air, air to ground, things like that. They're essentially a very serious thing. And because they're dealing with Department of Defense things, unless you have a U.S. citizenship and can prove it with a passport or other form of identification, they won't let you in the facility. They're very, very secure. Their security guards wear firearms. It's all about security, and they practice 7S at General Atomics. And many other companies also practice 7S now, but for a long time that wasn't common. But again, that first S, safety, the second S, security. Now, sort, straighten, and shine. Sort, we want to remove all unneeded items from the work area. They just clutter things up that can be a problem. We only want to keep what is needed to perform the daily work. Items that are no longer needed can be red tagged, as we say. Put a red tag on and say, hey, these can be disposed. Sometimes we want to donate them, discard them, or maybe someone else can use them, but we don't want them in the work area. So they move them off to a red tag area for future disposition. Now, straighten, everything has a place and everything is in its place. The locations that we have minimize walking, searching, reaching, and other wasted motion. Now, after we've done sort and straighten, and by the way, we always want to do these in order, then we shine. We don't want to shine or sweep things that shouldn't even be there. They've been removed already. Clean everywhere, clean everything. Nothing is stacked on top of cabinets, machinery, all the equipment is wiped down, clean, and ideally we paint them light colors. Why painted light colors? So you can see if there's a problem and it keeps us focused on cleaning. Now, that's a challenge if every equipment in your operation is blue. I don't think you want to go through a painting issue, but it may be necessary at some point in time. So let's look at an example. Here's before. This is where all the tools were stored to do a changeover on a welding robot. Afterwards, this is what it looked like. I asked the operator, his name happened to be Buddy, and I said, Buddy, can you do a shadow board? He goes, what's a shadow board? And I said, it's essentially a whiteboard with hooks and screws on it that you put all your tools on and you outline them with a black marker, and then you know if everything's there. And I'd said, it was in this before study, I said, buddy, do you have all your stuff? He goes, yep, I have everything. Where's your hammer? He goes, oh yeah, it's not there. So I said, do you have everything? He goes, yep, I can tell in 1 second if I have everything I need. Now, is this the perfect, shadow board? Probably not, but it's pretty good and it's way better than it had before. Now, keep in mind, 7S is not just for the factory floor or the warehouse. It works in office and lab environments equally well. So here's an example of a shared workspace, not too spiffy before, much better afterwards. All right. So sort, straighten, and shine. Looks at some other examples. These were the tool storage in a bin before. Afterwards, nice foam cutouts. Now, if I know if I have everything, and by the way, I only need 4 things, so what's all that other stuff, right? Here's another one. We talked about painting machinery. They said, hey, we're going to do a complete overhaul of this particular item. Before it looked like this, gray. Now it's white. And they did a lot of work on it. So again, that's the kind of concept that we want to push towards. One last example. This is Buddy on his welding robot as an example. That's what it looked like before. I love this picture because this is what it looked like when we finished our 7S effort. Nice, right? Before, after. So again, Buddy was a huge owner of this and was a big believer in 7S because he goes, wow, this is great. I wish I could have had this 20 years ago when I started here. All right, so the last couple S's, standardize and sustain. These are a little bit tougher. We need to think about standardizing, use the same colors, the same floor tape, same tool holding boards, the signage looks the same so that we can be quick to look at things, easy to read, easy to understand, and very visual. We want to make 7S a habit. Sustaining is challenging. It's the hardest of the 7S's. Sometimes you need to set up a schedule and go back through the 7S steps on a regular basis to ensure you have a safe, organized, neat, clean, and standardized workplace. I find the most effective way to sustain the 7S workplace and organization is through regular 7S audits. A method that many organizations have found helpful, and I've recommended this multiple times, is to transform your legacy safety committee or safety team, make them a 7S team or a 7S audit team. You're going to cover safety anyway. It's the first S in 7S, and that way you can better utilize people's time and make sure you're addressing issues on a regular basis, let's say at least monthly. So here's an example of a standardized visual factory floor marking legend. White lines were aisles, yellow lines indicate item location. Yellow with black was no storage or keep clear. Green lines were finished goods or things that were good. Red lines were non-conforming parts or scrap. So just one idea. Here's an example of a sample 7S schedule. So in this particular layout, these are the items they had to do to make sure they were getting everything done. So again, that's another way to look at it. Now, this 7S audit tool I'm going to cover is in your Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt Toolkit. In this particular 7S audit, I created it so that it was very easy. There's no fractional scores. You're only whole numbers from 0 up to 10. So everybody can identify 10 is perfect and a 0 is awful, right? If you notice at the bottom on that left-hand side, it says safety, security, sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain, just in the order that we want to do them. Now, the best way to use this audit is to read across the line. Start at the bottom, start at 0. We always start with safety first. Any safety issues? No. Okay, great. We're above a 0. Are there any potential safety issues? No. Okay, then we're above a 1. Now we get up there. Okay, how are safety and security? They're okay. Is there any 7S? No, not really. Okay, so then we're stuck at a 2. We don't keep going once we've identified where we are. We're at 2. Safety and security are marginal, no 7S in place, areas disorganized and not clean. Now, could we get up to a 3? Yeah, there's been some work. Safety's okay, security's okay, but we really still need to sort, straighten, and shine. Sort is one of the main things. If you don't get a good sort done, it's hard to move up. You'll have a really nice label there on it, but there's still stuff that doesn't belong there. It's probably still going to be a 2 or a 3. So again, to get to the high of the yellow, we're out of the red, get to the high of the yellow. A 4 would be safety and security are good. 7S sort is done, but we still need to do some straightening and shining. Okay, that would be a high yellow. Now, if we want to get to a 5, safety and security are good. 7S sort and straighten are complete, but we still need to shine. So maybe everything looks pretty good, but I need to do some polishing, or I need to get dust off the top of cabinets and things like that. So to get into the green is where we want to aim. But in terms of getting it to the top of the green to get to a 7, I need safety and security to be excellent. I need complete 7S discipline in place, and it needs to be very well labeled. If it's not very well labeled, it can't be a 7, and it definitely can't be above that. Now, to get into the sky high blue area, I want safety and security to be excellent. 7S is a habit. Most members own the area, but sometimes it's not sustained. We fall off, junk comes back into place. We go back to a 4. So an 8 would be a non-sustained but very high level. They got there, but they couldn't maintain it. If you can stay at an 8 for several audits in a row, you could move up to a 9. Now the 10, which I've never scored any areas, a 10 would be it's a model area. 7S habits are a best practice. And the team actually helps other teams to be better at 7S. That would be a perfect scenario. Again, 10, we don't want to go high. Now, typically in your 7S audit, go low, shoot low, and then tell them what do they have to do to get to the next level. If they're a 2, what do you got to do to get to be a 3? If you're a 4, what do you got to do to get to be a 5? That's the feedback you give the area when you finish the audit. Now, because security is the most recent of the S's added to the 7S, so it was 5S, then it was 6S, or 5S plus 1 adding safety, then 7S adding security. I have security tips on that lower right-hand section. So think of some of the security tips to help you in identifying security. So is the area secure? Are the doors closed and locked? Are keys and badges secured? Are they open to anybody to grab them? Are employees and visitors identified? The reception area is either staffed or locked. Is there no sensitive data in recycle bins? They're not sitting on tables in the break room. They're not left on the copier, that kind of thing. They're not in personal data being removed from the building without approval. Those are the kind of things we look for security. And then finally, no discussion of sensitive information in public areas. And we don't talk about people's performance review in an open area or a hallway or a stairwell. And then finally, no passwords are posted on computers. Like on the computer, it says password is open. That's not very secure. We want to get away from that. So again, practice with this. Read across the line. There are no decimals. It's only whole numbers. If you can't get to the whole number, you got to go to the next lowest number. All right, 7S audit guidelines. Like I said before, this is a great way to get to the other side. At first, you might need to do daily or even weekly 7S audits to get the proper habits in place. Make sure that you're auditing your areas and preferably your whole site at least every month, right? We need to do it for the safety committee. We might as well do all of it. Consider trophies, honors, rewards to establish initial adoption until it becomes a habit. We used to give out awards to the best area. One of the sites that I worked at had the golden pig. They also had the black pig, or the pig that would squeak, for the area that was the worst. At the company I worked at, we had the winner, the 7S winner, which they get to fly that particular sign over their area. And then we also had the 7S needs work with the boot print and the hand stamp and the fingerprints. Say, hey, we had the high end and the low end. And one of the facilities I worked at in Athens, Georgia, we had the golden transformer. We were a transformer factory, and a big golden 7 on the top of it. That was the winner. And I think they got like a free lunch or something. And then there was the Oscar the Grouch trash can transformer with an Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street on it, and boot prints and footprints on it for the 7S lowest score. Nobody wanted to get the lowest score. Nobody wanted Oscar, the dirty transformer one. So here's an example of a 7S audit that we did, and you have this within your Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt toolkit you can use. It's conditionally formatted. As you put the number in, the color shows up, so it's really visual and simple. In this particular example, you can see the large tank and fab frames was a 1. They got the Oscar, the needs work 7S thing, and boy, they did not want to get that again. And so they worked on it and I think they got up to a 4 or 5 by the next audit. But we had several places that had been working on their 7S for a while, and there were 8s and 9s, so that was not uncommon. But a lot of people still in the yellow, a lot of people in the green, which is okay. But if you'd seen the facility 2 years before this particular audit was done, you would have said, oh my gosh, what a huge change. Big, big improvement in 7S, and of course, safety and workplace environment much better. Now, if you want to learn more about the original 5S's, David Visco, also a friend of mine, know him through the Association for Manufacturing Excellence, wrote a book called 5S Made Easy. It's a great step-by-step guide to implementing and sustaining your 5S program. And there's lots of different companies out there that can help you with your 5S efforts, including good floor tape, signage, other things like that. All right, that's it for our 7S lesson number 7. Thank you.